Hi, Shaker. Welcome to Equity Unscripted. So, what is Equity Unscripted? Well, it's a vlog series where I have the opportunity to sit down with various members of our Shaker community, whether they're administrators or teachers or even students, to talk to them about various issues related to equity within our community and also within our nation. I'm really excited about these conversations. They are completely, totally unfiltered, they're engaging. And more importantly, they're exciting and they reflect the equity initiatives that we are tackling right now in our district and our community. First up in the Equity Unscripted series, we will hear from Dr. David Glasner. So thank you all for joining me for this wonderful series of Equity Unscripted. Welcome, Shaker community, to the latest installation of Equity Unscripted. I'm Dr. Jeffrey Ann Wilder. I am so excited to have Dr. David Glasner with me today. For those folks who don't know, although I think there are very few who do not, Dr. Glasner is our superintendent of Shaker Schools. So welcome so much, Dr. Glasner. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I am thrilled to be here and very much looking forward to our conversation. I did just want to start by highlighting the sweatshirt that I'm wearing. I don't know if everybody can see it. There it is. This sweatshirt is part of our annual Sankofa performance, which is coming up in just a couple of days. I definitely encourage everyone to sign up and get to see the virtual performance this year, where we annually celebrate Black history and Black heritage. And I'm looking very much forward to the presentation this year and the performance.
Wonderful. I need one of those sweatshirts, and I definitely do not want to miss the presentation coming up this weekend. Let's just jump right in. So, as you know, I'm new to the district, and in a lesser extent, you're also newer in your role. This is your second year as the superintendent of Shaker Schools, and what I have to say that I have been so impressed by is Shaker's imprint around educational equity. So let's just start with that. Can you share with us some of the really important things connected to your specific vision when you walked into this role as superintendent as it relates to advancing equity in Shaker?
Sure, and I have to start, first of all, by giving credit to our entire community and to the leaders in this school community. I feel very fortunate to be a part of the work that's happening here. And the foundation for the educational equity work that we're doing right now was laid before I got here, and long before I got here in some cases. I mean, Shaker historically has really tried to be a district that focuses on integration in our classrooms and in our schools and equity for all of our students. More recently, that work and that push has been advanced by the board adopting an educational equity policy a few years ago, by the adoption of our strategic plan last year, which is centered on educational equity and international baccalaureate learning experiences. And actually, even adopting the international baccalaureate framework, I think about a decade ago now, I would actually also put in the context of a striving to advance educational equity for our students, because we know that every student deserves an enriching and engaging and rigorous learning experience that is based in problem solving and teamwork and modern technology. And the International Baccalaureate covers all of those. So I will say it has been very exciting to see the work continue to advance in educational equity over the past 2 years. Coming into my role as superintendent, I was certainly excited knowing that there was this strong foundation and that our community is really invested and supportive of our efforts related to educational equity. I think we have surpassed my wildest expectations in terms of where we've gotten to in a relatively short amount of time. Part of that, I'd love to take credit for and say that it's things that we've done very intentionally, and that's true. We have done things very intentionally to get to where we are, and some of it has been because of the pandemic and other things outside of our control. that has really required us to think differently and to envision instruction and learning and teaching and engagement in a different way.
I think that it is really enlightening and very, very helpful for our listeners. So, I mean, you know, you're the second year in your role, and wow, what a start to your first year. So almost a year ago, right? We're heading up almost, you know, walking into March here, which brings us to the anniversary, if you will, of the start of, you know, things never looking the same again. Looking back over the past 12 months, would you do anything differently as it relates to equity or, I mean, obviously there is nothing that we could ever foreshadow with the pandemic and also the movement towards racial justice in 2020. Looking over the past 12 months, would you do anything differently?
A couple of things. First of all, you know, we talk about the anniversary or the start of the pandemic as really being a dark moment in our nation and our world's history. I want to contrast that a little bit because for us and here in Shaker, it was also literally at the same time our board approved our new strategic plan, which sets the stage and the vision for Shaker in the short term, the medium term, and the long term. And that is really exciting because that strategic plan, the goals that we as a community have put our efforts behind and our support behind, really do require us to create a new Shaker that will meet all of our students' needs and that will strengthen educational equity for everyone. So it is, you know, the pandemic, of course, has provided very difficult and challenging times, but our strategic plan and the goals that we've laid out in there have also really provided a highlight and a motivation to really continue the work that we're doing. You asked me whether there's anything differently that we could do or that I look back. You know, I think the experience that we've had over the past few weeks here, where we as a district took very intentional steps to respond to the events of January 6th and the conversations that are happening in our country and the tensions that exist in our country. And we took time out of regular learning to provide a learning experience for all of our students and all of our staff and faculty. I really see that experience as a model for things that we should be continuing to do when there is a really powerful or impactful or important crisis or incident or conversation or challenge that is happening in our country. I think back last spring when George Floyd was killed and lots of other issues were happening in our country. Black Lives Matter protests were appearing all around our country and in our community. I think we've learned now that it's really important to take a step back, provide intentional learning experiences and resources for our students and their families. That's something that I wish we could have done more of last spring. But like I said, I think we have learned and know that we have the ability to provide these kind of learning experiences moving forward.
I couldn't agree with you anymore. And I think everything that you just talked about and what sort of has been, you know, sort of laid in front of us over the past year is part of the reason I think that you dubbed this year, the 2021 academic year, with the theme of Shaker Rising, right? This notion that in spite of what, you know, barriers or things that might be facing us or ahead of us, that we're going to rise to the occasion in spite of, and as a way to come together more stronger as a community. Can you share with us a little bit more around your thoughts around the Shaker Rising theme and give us just a little bit more context there?
Sure. First of all, a couple of things. You know, I think we talked about the pandemic and how challenging and hard that has been for our community and our country. And knowing that and going into this year, really felt it was important to send a message that we here in Shaker have the ability to rise above that. We're very lucky. We have the tools, the people, the students, the community to continue to be strong. And so thinking of the Shaker Rising phrase, motto, theme, we wanted to really push the idea, promote the idea that we need to stay positive. I also really believe that we have to have high standards and expectations and provide excellent learning opportunities for all of our students. And our students are going to rise to the occasion. They always do. And so we came up with this theme of Shaker Rising because we wanted all of our students and families to know that we're going to keep the bar really high, because that's what a Shaker education is all about. And we're going to help all of our students and families meet that bar, meet those expectations, and come away with an excellent learning opportunity. I also do want to give credit where credit is due. I meet regularly with our Equity Advisory and Action team, and we talked a lot about the theme for this year, what our goals need to be for this year, and the Shaker Rising theme really came out of many of those conversations. So I appreciate all of our community stakeholders that had input in that conversation.
That really is one of the, I think, the highlights of the work and me walking into this role, almost 7 months ago, is the strength and breadth of our community stakeholders who are engaged both formally and informally. That's been really encouraging, and I think it provides us as a district with a really great compass on how to move forward, one way or the other. And it's part of one of the things I really appreciate about Shaker Schools is the fact that there are so many folks and so many voices. It's not the same voice by any stretch of the imagination, but there's so many voices that chime in and share their perspective about their own vision for our district. And of course, through all those voices and the diverse nature of those voices, we can ensure that we reach a collective consensus toward having a better future for our community and for our students. So I want to pivot a little bit and scope out thinking about my role in particular. As I mentioned, I joined the district at the end of July of 2020. And the role that I'm in as Executive Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is a new one for the district. And it's, brings me a great honor to be walking into this inaugural role. We've also seen, as a result of the uprising, if you will, and the movement of 2020, lots of jobs like this crop up all over the nation. In fact, just recently, LinkedIn shared that DEI roles, so ED roles, Chief Diversity Officers, Directors, whatever title you want to put on it, was the largest growing job across the country, regardless of industry, whether that was K-12, higher ed, nonprofit, corporate spaces in the nation. Now, obviously, the district had some forethought around putting this role together, but can you share with us why you think a role like this is so crucial in a K-12 district?
Absolutely, and I do want to point out, I did not know that about the, that there are so many DEI kind of roles cropping up in the country, though I'm not surprised. I think we've certainly seen that trend coming. But that being said, I think that Shaker remains a leader, and we're still relatively unique in the fact that we have an Executive Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and all the parts of your department and your office that go with that. That is still relatively uncommon in the K-12 space, and I certainly see this as a place where we can provide leadership and serve as a role model for other districts to follow our lead. I will say, I think for any organization, including a K-12 district, there are tensions and challenges to creating this kind of role. And I know, Jeffrey, and you and I have talked about this since you've been here and even before you got here. there is a danger that in hiring a person or creating an office that is supposed to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, that all of the diversity, equity, and inclusion work will just be shifted to that person, right? Oh, you're the equity person, so you're the one who does all the equity work in our district. And that is not the case here, fortunately, nor can that be the case. We've put in place, I think, structures that prevent that slide from happening, but it is something that we always have to be aware of and attentive to make sure that's not happening. I see your role and the work of your department, your office, as supporting everybody else in the district doing work related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. That work around DEI is something that we all have to own. I have to own as superintendent. All of our administrators, our teachers, our staff, our faculty, our community members, and even our students have to own the work around diversity, equity, and inclusion in order for it to be successful here. I think we're lucky that you provide us with a great deal of expertise and experience and thoughts about how we can do this work, but ultimately the work has to be in everybody's hands in this district.
Again, you're absolutely right. I think, that collective ownership, that collective accountability even is really crucial to a job like mine and others, regardless of whatever industry they live in and whatever space they occupy. That's really crucial in order for the organization to be successful and the individual holding that particular job to be successful. So absolutely 100%. So let's switch it up even more. And, I know that folks are used to hearing from you, probably from the both of us. And let's talk about some things that don't really have a whole lot to do with K-12 education at all. What kind of things keep you up at night?
Of course, there are things on a day-to-day basis. I want to make sure that all of our students are learning, our buildings are working well in the times of the pandemic, that everyone stays safe and healthy. But I think more broadly, I recognize that, and it does keep me up at night, like if we don't pay attention to the work that we're doing, especially around diversity, equity, and inclusion, we risk the danger of kind of going backwards or not making progress. I've had lots of conversations with people, not just as superintendent, but in my time here in Shaker, alumni or families who have lived here for a long time that say, I went to school here 10 years ago or 20 years ago, or my son or grandson or granddaughter went to school here X number of years ago, and we're still dealing with the same problems and the same issues. I think that's part of the nature of this work. I know you said this before, racism and systemic racism and all these issues didn't happen overnight. We won't get out of it overnight. But I really believe that we do have the power here in Shaker to make a difference for our students who are here right now and our families who are here right now, and for our students and families that are coming in a year from now or 5 years from now or 10 years from now or for the next generation. And I really want to make sure that we see visible evidence of that progress. It's not just things we talk about, and we talk about these things a lot here in Shaker, that we're also actually able to see proof on the ground that things are changing and getting better and improving for our students and their families.
Yeah, I think about that a lot too. You go about your day-to-day life, your day-to-day work. You want to make sure that you're doing the work, but you're also simultaneously thinking about how you make your mark and how you leave, the place, the world better off than you started. It does seem daunting, but I do think given the work that we're doing, it is kind of always in the back of our mind. Okay.
Can I just say one other thing? I do want to be clear. We have a lot to be proud of in Shaker. We've always had a lot to be proud of in Shaker. Looking back, I don't think we've never done a terrible job. And I think we've always tried to do our best, and we always have room to improve. And I think that's what I'm excited about continuing to see happen here in Shaker.
Well said. All right, final question for folks who probably want to maybe get to know you a little bit more outside your role as superintendent. We're both 90s kids, right? We both love the 90s because it was a great decade. Favorite 90s show? I'm putting you on the spot. Favorite 90s show or favorite
Right.
show from like high school that you used to watch all the time?
If my wife were watching this, she would probably laugh because she'd probably be like, David didn't watch any TV in the 90s. Probably Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Good choice. Good choice. And 90s band, music from the 90s.
I'm going to date myself here. I'll give two examples. One, because I was just talking to my son the other day about one of the first tapes that I got. The Bangles.
Okay. Walk Like an Egyptian.
Walk Like an Egyptian and Just Another Manic Monday. And so now on many Mondays in our house, we just listen to that song before we all go to school. And I was in the car the other day and heard Young MC Bust a Move. And that one's kind of tough to beat. So
oh man. Is this about busting a move, Dr. Glasner?
I want to see that.
I don't know. I guess they'll be listening to us. They won't be able to necessarily see us, but I think that is a great way to end. Thank you so much for being my first guest on the Equity Unscripted vlog podcast show. It is truly a pleasure to work with you, and thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, I'm Dr. Jeffrey Ann Wilder.